You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your educational journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. Visualization in agile delivery provides the shared context that allows teams and stakeholders to see the state of work, the flow of progress, and the purpose behind increments. The orientation here is that boards, story maps, and information radiators are not decorative charts but working tools. Their purpose is to make flow, scope, and learning observable so that decisions can be made faster and collaboration becomes simpler. Without visualization, alignment often breaks down into status meetings, verbal updates, or scattered spreadsheets that confuse rather than clarify. With strong visualization, everyone can see what matters at a glance: what is in flight, what is blocked, what outcomes are being pursued, and how well the team is progressing toward them. Visualization builds trust by providing a single source of truth, reducing the need for repeated reporting, and empowering people to self-serve information. It becomes the scaffolding for daily alignment. The principles behind effective visualization emphasize clarity, relevance, and integrity. At their heart is the idea of a single trusted view of work in flight and intent. A well-maintained board or map reduces the need for repeated status requests because it shows progress transparently. Concise artifacts prevent clutter and confusion, while relevance ensures that what is displayed truly reflects outcomes rather than vanity signals. For example, a team that maintains a board showing tasks in motion, success signals, and risks allows anyone walking by or logging in remotely to understand the current picture without asking. This principle of transparency also means avoiding multiple, conflicting views. If different tools or charts tell different stories, trust erodes. Instead, visualization works best when it represents a disciplined, single thread of truth that is updated predictably. Principles are simple: one view, clear signals, minimal noise, and a connection to outcomes rather than activity counts. The purpose of a board is to represent current flow from intake to done, not as an abstract diagram but as a faithful mirror of how the team actually works. Boards serve as the operational nervous system, showing what has been started, what is blocked, and what is finished. The value comes when columns and policies align with real stages of work, rather than idealized process steps copied from a textbook. For example, if a team's actual flow is refinement, development, verification, ready for release, done, then the board should reflect that, not a generic 3-column to do, doing, done. Boards are effective when they show how work really moves, including any handoffs, reviews, or waiting states. This fidelity prevents surprises, surfaces bottlenecks early, and creates opportunities for improvement. When boards are truthful reflections of flow, they stop being mere visuals and become living guides for collaboration. Column design on a board is where visualization becomes precise. Each column should represent not only a stage, but also its explicit entry and exit criteria. This prevents silent rework, where items are moved forward prematurely and then dragged back when gaps are discovered. Entry criteria clarify when an item is ready to enter a stage, while exit criteria define when it can move on. For instance, a testing column may require that acceptance criteria are defined before entry and that automated test results pass before exit. By making these boundaries explicit, movement across columns reflects genuine progress, not cosmetic updates. Stakeholders observing the board can then trust that when a card moves, meaningful progress has been made. Column design transforms the board from a rough sketch into a disciplined instrument, where progress signals are accurate and actionable. It strengthens alignment by ensuring that flow is visible and reliable. Card anatomy gives each unit of work meaning by capturing essential context in plain language. A card should not simply carry a title like Feature X, but instead include the problem being solved, the intended outcome, acceptance conditions, risks, and the owner. This context allows any observer, even one new to the team, to understand what value is being pursued and how success will be judged. For example, a card might read, "Enable self-service password reset to reduce help desk tickets by 20%. Acceptance: user can reset without agent. Risk: adoption may lag without communication. Owner: Alex." Such anatomy makes the card a self-contained artifact of intent, not just a placeholder for work. It prevents the board from devolving into a cryptic collection of labels. Card anatomy ensures that visualization communicates not only activity, but also meaning, keeping everyone oriented to why the work exists. Work in process and aging indicators make invisible risks visible. Too much work in flight signals overload, which slows progress and increases error rates. Aging indicators show when items have been sitting too long in one stage, suggesting bottlenecks or neglect. By visualizing both, teams can swarm to clear blockages before they escalate into incidents. For example, a card highlighted in red after exceeding an aging threshold prompts immediate discussion. Why is this item stuck? Should we resequence or reassign? Visualization of work in process and aging also drives discipline in managing intake, as stakeholders can see the cost of starting too much at once. By exposing these dynamics, boards turn abstract flow problems into observable patterns. Teams then shift from debating anecdotes to responding to clear signals. Indicators of overload and stagnation protect predictability and quality, reinforcing that visualization is a tool for foresight, not just hindsight. Service classes and swim lanes bring nuance to visualization by differentiating types of work. Not all items carry the same urgency or risk, and boards that treat them all alike hide critical distinctions. Service classes such as standard, expedite, fixed date, and intangible help teams signal how work should be prioritized and managed. Swim lanes allow these categories to be represented clearly, reducing confusion. For instance, a fixed-date compliance increment may sit in its own lane, making deadlines visible and preventing accidental neglect. Intangible work like reducing technical debt can also be visualized, ensuring it competes fairly with feature delivery. This differentiation brings proportionality to policies. Expedite items may bypass queues, while standard items follow normal flow. By making classes explicit, boards prevent surprises and set expectations for stakeholders. Swim lanes and service classes give boards strategic depth, ensuring that visualization reflects the reality of risk and urgency. Blocker visualization prevents hidden queues from festering. When work is impeded by dependencies, waiting for reviews, or external approvals, it is tempting to leave it silently in progress. Visualization instead calls out blockers explicitly, often with distinctive symbols, notes, or colored markers. Each blocker should include the reason, the next step, and the escalation path. For example, a card might carry a red marker stating, "Waiting for vendor certification. Next step, escalate if no response by Friday." This transparency prevents blame cycles and finger-pointing, as the team can see the obstacle clearly and act to resolve it. Blocker visualization also protects predictability, since stakeholders can distinguish between active progress and waiting states. By surfacing impediments openly, boards reinforce a culture of honesty and shared accountability, ensuring that flow is managed rather than obscured. Blockers cease to be invisible frustrations and become visible challenges to solve together. Capacity and demand signals provide a macro-level view of whether the team's workload is sustainable. By comparing the rate at which new work arrives with the rate at which work is completed, visualization reveals whether intake is exceeding capacity. For instance, if new items consistently arrive faster than they finish, backlogs will grow and predictability will collapse. Simple charts or indicators alongside the board can display arrival and completion rates, prompting honest conversations about intake limits and trade-offs. These signals protect against the illusion of control when demand far exceeds what the team can handle. They also empower stakeholders to negotiate priorities rather than simply adding to queues. By making capacity visible, visualization ensures that alignment discussions are grounded in reality. It encourages responsible decision-making, where new commitments are weighed against proven throughput rather than wishful thinking. Story maps complement boards by visualizing scope across user journeys. While boards show current flow, story maps arrange desired capabilities by breadth before depth, organized around how users move through the system. For example, in an online shopping experience, the map might show browse, select, purchase, receive as the backbone, with features aligned beneath each step. This layout reveals thin, end-to-end slices that can deliver early learning and value before deepening functionality. Story maps make discovery collaborative, helping teams and stakeholders see the big picture while still focusing on the next slice. They prevent teams from building isolated features out of sequence and ensure that increments follow the user's perspective. By visualizing work through journeys, story maps keep delivery tied to real user experience rather than fragmented backlogs. They connect strategy, design, and execution in one coherent artifact. Outcome linkage turns story maps from feature lists into value roadmaps. Each activity or slice on the map is connected to measurable results, showing why it matters. For example, a slice improving the purchase step might be linked to reducing checkout abandonment, while a slice in browse might tie to increasing time on site. This linkage ensures that discovery and delivery remain tied to outcomes rather than drifting into building for its own sake. It also creates a direct line of sight from increment work to organizational goals. When stakeholders see outcomes mapped alongside features, discussions shift from what should we build to what should we learn and prove. This strengthens alignment and provides accountability. Outcome-linked story maps are not just blueprints for functionality. They are evidence-oriented maps for value creation, making purpose visible at every stage. Release slicing from the story map ensures that increments validate assumptions safely. Instead of treating the map as a giant backlog to be completed in sequence, teams identify coherent increments that deliver value early. For instance, rather than building the entire receive step of the shopping journey, the first release might focus on basic delivery confirmation before expanding to tracking and flexible scheduling. These increments reduce risk by testing assumptions at small scale before investing heavily. Release slicing also provides milestones that keep stakeholders engaged, as progress is visible in meaningful chunks rather than deferred to the end. By sequencing work this way, teams avoid speculative big batch plans that gamble on unproven ideas. Release slicing turns the map into a living plan where each step proves or disproves hypotheses, reinforcing agility through evidence-based progression. Information radiators extend visualization beyond the team by publishing minimal vital signals in accessible, visible formats. These may include outcomes achieved, flow stability, quality indicators, and risks. The idea is not to overwhelm with data, but to provide the few signals that matter most for alignment. For example, a radiator might display time to value for top priorities, current work in progress levels, and any critical risks. Stakeholders can self-serve this context without calling meetings, reducing overhead, and improving transparency. Effective radiators are designed for quick understanding, often with clear graphics or plain language summaries. They shift the burden from the team having to explain status repeatedly to stakeholders being able to observe it directly. By radiating vital information, organizations maintain alignment with minimal ceremony, ensuring that evidence of progress, risks, and priorities is visible at all times. Freshness and stewardship determine whether visualization remains credible over time. A board or radiator that is not updated quickly loses trust and becomes ignored. To prevent this, each artifact should have an assigned steward responsible for updates and a clear cadence for refreshing. For example, cards may be updated daily, outcome dashboards weekly, and risk indicators biweekly. This discipline ensures that what is displayed matches reality rather than stale assumptions. Freshness also creates accountability, as stakeholders know who to approach if discrepancies arise. Stewardship prevents artifacts from becoming set-and-forget decorations, ensuring they remain living tools. By maintaining freshness and stewardship, visualization becomes reliable, reinforcing trust that what is seen is what is true. This trust is essential for visualization to serve as a foundation for decision-making and alignment. Remote-ready visualization acknowledges that teams and stakeholders are often distributed across locations and bandwidth conditions. Artifacts must be accessible, searchable, and understandable when read aloud or viewed asynchronously. This may involve digital boards that are easy to navigate, maps that include text descriptions, and radiators designed for screen readers. Remote readiness ensures parity across contributors, so no one is disadvantaged by geography or technical limitations. For example, a stakeholder dialing in from a low-bandwidth environment should still be able to access simplified versions of the board or map. By designing visualization for remote inclusivity, organizations preserve equity and engagement. It also future-proofs practices, as distributed work has become a permanent reality. Remote-ready visualization ensures that alignment tools function across contexts, reinforcing the principle that transparency and accessibility are for everyone, not just those physically present. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Board hygiene practices are essential to keep visualization trustworthy and actionable. Over time, boards that are not actively maintained accumulate stale cards, incomplete notes, or misleading progress markers. Hygiene means retiring items that no longer matter, annotating blocked work so its status is clear, and recording decision timestamps so history is auditable. For example, if a story is abandoned, the board should reflect that choice with a time-stamped note rather than leaving the card to linger indefinitely. This practice preserves learning and prevents confusion, as anyone reviewing the board later can see what was attempted, why it stopped, and when the decision was made. Good hygiene also signals professionalism, assuring stakeholders that the visualization is an accurate representation of reality. Without hygiene, boards quickly lose credibility and become ignored. With it, visualization remains a living system of record that strengthens trust and informs better decisions. Outcome dashboards extend the function of boards by providing a view into performance, risk, and quality metrics. Effective dashboards favor percentiles and ranges over single averages, which often hide critical variations. They also pair numbers with narrative explanations so that observers can interpret signals correctly. For instance, a dashboard might show that 90% of requests complete under 2 seconds, but also note that a small cohort of users in a particular region faces much longer delays. This combination of distributional data and context tells a richer story than a flat average would. Narratives help stakeholders understand what the numbers imply for decisions, whether action is required, and what risks remain. Dashboards are most effective when lean and targeted, displaying only the few signals tied directly to goals. By designing outcome dashboards carefully, organizations ensure that metrics illuminate value and risk rather than overwhelm with noise. Risk and assumption trackers complement boards by surfacing what must be true for work to succeed. These trackers explicitly record the conditions, hypotheses, and external dependencies underlying increments. For example, a tracker might state, assumption vendor API remains stable. Risk adoption depends on marketing campaign readiness. By visualizing assumptions and risks alongside work items, teams remind themselves and stakeholders that delivery is contingent on more than internal progress. Early indicators, such as API downtime or campaign delays, can then trigger proportionate action. This practice prevents surprises by keeping uncertainties visible rather than hidden. Risk and assumption trackers also provide a valuable record of what was believed at the time, enabling learning if outcomes diverge from expectations. They turn implicit dependencies into explicit conversations, strengthening alignment and protecting credibility. By embedding trackers into visualization, teams balance optimism with realism, ensuring work advances responsibly. Story map to backlog synchronization keeps near-term planning tethered to strategic discovery. Without synchronization, story maps may drift into static artifacts that no longer reflect actual work, while backlogs become tactical lists disconnected from vision. Synchronization ensures that the next slices pulled into the backlog align with the map's structure and intent. For example, if the map highlights the checkout journey as the current focus, backlog refinement should prioritize slices from that area rather than unrelated enhancements. This linkage preserves coherence across planning levels, keeping discovery and delivery in sync. It also prevents wasted effort on work that feels urgent locally but does not advance mapped outcomes. Synchronization makes visualization dynamic, with story maps feeding backlogs and backlogs updating maps. By maintaining this loop, organizations ensure that daily choices serve strategic direction and that visualization reflects both intent and execution faithfully. Definition of done visibility strengthens quality by embedding expectations directly into visualization artifacts. Instead of leaving quality, security, or operability standards as unwritten rules, teams publish them on boards, cards, or maps. For example, a card might include a checklist of criteria, such as unit tests written, security scan passed, documentation updated. By making these visible, visualization becomes a guardrail that guides behavior. Stakeholders can also see that standards are respected, increasing trust. This practice prevents shortcuts under pressure by reminding everyone of the non-negotiables. It also creates consistency across teams, as the visible definition of done reduces ambiguity. Embedding standards directly into visualization turns them into daily reference points rather than abstract agreements. It reinforces that completion means meeting agreed quality, not just finishing coding. This visibility elevates alignment, ensuring that increments are both delivered and defensible. Dependency and interface views extend boards by making upstream and downstream relationships explicit. Many increments rely on other systems or teams, and without visualization, these dependencies can remain invisible until they cause delays. Interface views might show external APIs, shared environments, or legal approvals that must be synchronized. For example, a dependency board could mark that a payment feature cannot be released until security certification is obtained. Visualizing dependencies prevents surprises and supports realistic sequencing. It also fosters proactive coordination, as teams can see where collaboration is required and plan accordingly. By surfacing dependencies, visualization aligns expectations across groups and prevents false assumptions of independence. These views also highlight systemic bottlenecks, enabling leadership to address structural issues. Dependency visualization is not about complexity for its own sake. It is about turning hidden risks into visible, manageable elements of flow. Telemetry hooks embedded into cards and maps ensure that value signals are captured automatically when slices are released. Each work item can reference which events will be recorded and how they will be analyzed. For example, a card might include telemetry, capture number of reset attempts, error rate, and completion success. By making this explicit, teams guarantee that increments are not only delivered, but also measurable. Telemetry hooks also prevent afterthought measurement, where evidence is missing because no one remembered to instrument the feature. Embedding these hooks connects delivery to evidence, reinforcing a culture of accountability. It ensures that visualization is not just about flow, but also about learning. By tying telemetry to cards and maps, teams create a seamless bridge between work and outcomes, making every increment both observable and testable in practice. Compliance-aware visualization integrates governance requirements into everyday artifacts, avoiding the need for parallel documentation. Boards or maps may include approvals, traceability links, or retention notes directly on cards. For example, a regulated healthcare increment might include a link to its audit trail or a note that data retention standards have been confirmed. By embedding compliance into visualization, organizations make it part of the flow rather than a separate burden. This transparency reassures stakeholders and regulators that obligations are being addressed continuously, not retrofitted under pressure. It also prevents compliance work from being hidden or neglected, as its presence is visible to all. Compliance-aware visualization demonstrates that agility and accountability are not opposites but partners. It makes governance observable and routine, reinforcing that increments advance responsibly within their legal and ethical boundaries. Accessibility commitments extend visualization's inclusivity by ensuring that artifacts can be engaged with by all contributors. This means using clear, plain language, alt text for images, and structures that work with screen readers. For remote or distributed teams, it may also include ensuring compatibility with low-bandwidth connections and mobile devices. By making accessibility part of visualization, organizations prevent exclusion of voices that may carry critical insights. For example, if a board is posted only on a physical wall, remote participants are disadvantaged. Digital, accessible boards ensure equal participation. Accessibility also reinforces cultural values of fairness and inclusivity, demonstrating respect for all contributors. By embedding accessibility into visualization, organizations maximize engagement and protect alignment. Everyone can see, understand, and act on the same information, regardless of their circumstances or abilities. Anti-patterns in visualization highlight what to avoid. Vanity walls, for example, look impressive but hide cues and blockers, providing a false sense of control. Tool sprawl fragments the truth across multiple platforms, forcing teams to reconcile conflicting data. Dense charts that require specialist translation alienate stakeholders rather than informing them. These anti-patterns erode trust, as people learn that what they see is not what is real. Recognizing them helps teams remain disciplined, ensuring that visualization remains lean, relevant, and honest. The goal is not to impress, but to inform and guide. When boards and maps drift into theater or clutter, they stop serving alignment. Avoiding anti-patterns ensures that visualization fulfills its purpose, providing shared context that accelerates collaboration and decision-making. Integration with ceremonies ensures that boards and maps are not static backdrops but active tools. Planning sessions can use story maps to frame backlog selection. Reviews can use boards to anchor progress discussions. Retrospectives can analyze flow data visible on the board to identify systemic improvements. By making visualization the agenda for ceremonies, conversations are grounded in evidence rather than speculation. For example, rather than debating whether too much work is in flight, the retrospective can look directly at work-in-process limits shown on the board. Integration transforms visualization from a passive display into an active driver of collaboration. It ensures that ceremonies are efficient, focused, and aligned to reality, strengthening the link between planning and evidence. Portfolio roll-ups provide a higher-level visualization across multiple teams. The key is to aggregate only a few comparable signals, such as outcomes achieved, flow stability, and cross-team risks, rather than overwhelming leadership with metric theater. For instance, executives may see a simple dashboard showing which priorities have delivered measurable outcomes, where bottlenecks exist, and what risks require attention. Portfolio roll-ups must avoid diluting meaning with excessive detail or vanity metrics. Their purpose is to align strategy with delivery by providing an enterprise-level view of value flow. By keeping roll-ups lean and comparable, organizations create clarity across the portfolio without losing nuance at the team level. This strengthens strategic alignment and ensures leadership decisions are grounded in consistent evidence. Continuous pruning keeps visualization healthy and attention-focused. Over time, dashboards and boards tend to accumulate widgets, charts, and duplicate indicators. Without pruning, these artifacts become cluttered and distract from the signals that truly guide action. Continuous pruning means retiring low-signal elements, consolidating duplicates, and refreshing displays to reflect current priorities. For example, if a chart on defect density no longer informs decisions, it should be removed rather than maintained out of habit. Pruning is not about reducing transparency, but about preserving clarity. By curating visualization actively, organizations ensure that attention is directed where it matters most. This practice reinforces the principle that visualization is a living tool, not a static poster. It protects focus, credibility, and utility, ensuring that visualization continues to serve alignment effectively. Success evidence for visualization appears as tangible improvements in flow and collaboration. When visualization is effective, teams experience fewer surprise delays, as bottlenecks and blockers are surfaced early. Cross-team decisions happen faster because dependencies and risks are visible, reducing the need for endless clarification meetings. First-pass acceptance rates rise because acceptance criteria and outcomes are clearly displayed and aligned. These improvements are measurable indicators that visualization is working as intended. They show that boards, story maps, and radiators are not overhead, but enablers of smoother, more predictable delivery. Success evidence demonstrates the payoff of disciplined visualization practices, reinforcing that maintained and outcome-linked artifacts drive real business value. By tracking these signals, organizations validate that their investment in visualization translates into alignment, learning, and reduced friction. In conclusion, visualization practices create the everyday scaffolding that keeps agile delivery aligned, transparent, and evidence-driven. Part 2 has shown how hygiene, dashboards, risk trackers, and synchronization ensure credibility and coherence. Definition of done, visibility, and dependency views embed quality and realism, while telemetry hooks and compliance features integrate measurement and governance. Accessibility and anti-pattern awareness preserve inclusivity and honesty. Integration with ceremonies, portfolio roll-ups, and continuous pruning scale visualization responsibly. Finally, success evidence demonstrates that well-maintained boards, story maps, and information radiators lead to faster decisions, fewer surprises, and clearer outcomes. Together, these practices highlight that visualization is not about decoration, but about alignment, making flow and value visible so that learning accelerates and friction is reduced. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.